Hello, boys, and welcome back to day 3, I believe. And so today we're going to be talking about we're going to be talking about catapults, especially flexible catapults is the main thing we're going to be talking about. Now, initially, when catapults was first kind of, you could say, discovered, was when people would find when physics first came out, people would realize, hey, what if we just got a very small tank and just rammed it full speed? And so this is why you get people like Red Eye Productions here who'd make compilation videos of stuff like this, which is really, really fun. And I'm sure many of you guys might remember stuff like this. The classic Overlord catapult, way back in, let's see how old this is, 2016. So you can see that catapults has been around for a while, and this is what a catapult is. It's getting a vehicle of some kind and ramming it to get some sort of elevation. You're just catapulting it across a certain distance. And now the way this can be used as a tool is that you can have some sort of catapults where you can try and catapult onto objects, onto places that you shouldn't be. And that's what I'm going to be discussing today. And for this reason, you can't really use, like, for example, you can see what they're using here is just the Sherman found on Overlord, and you can still do it to this day, but the issue is that you can't always find available places for you to elevate a tank on and thus be able to catapult off of. And so what you want to do instead is use a flexible catapult. Now, what is that? Now, the best example can be shown from what we did back in 2020 is by using the E100 here and using an E100 turret. You can get some speed, and since you can place a catapult anywhere you want in any position you want, you can get onto any structure that you want in the game using enough time, patience, and manpower. And so it's very useful for getting over invisible walls, getting on top of buildings and structures, and we primarily use it, at least for my purpose, is to get onto giant structures in popular buildings inside of certain maps. So, and you can see here, you can basically use it to drive around. You have to land it perfectly though, as not to die. But what I didn't show you, or what you don't normally see, is the setups in order to get to the scenario right here in the first place. In order to get a launch like this, in the setup to do it is very intensive. That's what I'm going to be going over now. Earlier today, I decided to perform the exact same glitch, and here you'll see the entire setup in order to do it. So what you want to do first is get something like an E100. We use the E100 turret due to the angle of the turret being perfect for UEs to catapult off to. It gets a lot of height, and it gets a decent amount of distance. But you can change the turret depending on scenario. If you want to get distance, you can do stuff like a 705A or other turrets. That just really depends on the angle, and the mouse turret is unique. We were going to use mouse turrets, but mouse turrets were never used due to the physics, which we'll be discussing probably the next day. So, but you can see we have to be able to AMRAC it, and I'll speed it up here until we get the AMRAC. And this is step one. You get the 100 and you AMRAC it. Now, after it gets AMRAC, give it a second. So, after it gets AMRAC'd, now what you want to do is you need to get the turret in position. And this can be really difficult due to the turret's physics being really hard to be able to push because of the weird angles and it being the weight the same as the actual tank itself. It's just two entities that are just duplicated, so the weight is actually the same as an E100. And so getting the turret in position can be a bit tricky, and it takes a little bit of time, a little bit of finesse, and you have to manipulate. What I like to do is I like to manipulate the gun using the gun as an anchor in order to help turn and push the tank. And so you can see here in a second, even with the UE-57, if the turret's glitching up and down like this, you can actually barely push it in order to get the angle. And the angle is important because if the turret is not angled properly to be parallel to where you're aiming at, you'll end up just going in the direction the turret's aiming, which is not where you want to be. So I'd be slamming into the wall over there instead of getting onto the building over here. And so that's why the angle is important. And then it's trials. You get an EBR, you get some speed, and you start ramming it. You want to try and drive forward last second, because if you drive forward last second, it gets more momentum. So not like what Tanker did, but kind of like I'm about to do here in a second. So you can see I'm waiting for the EBR. Oop, too fast. But you can see here I'm waiting for the EBR, so he's going to get a bit of speed. And I'm trying to time it to right when he's about to hit me. I drive forward, so it adds on the momentum of me driving forward, help get a little bit more height. That's just something I like to do. It's a small technique. You don't always need to do this. It's just what I like to do. And you get a lot of distance and height, but again, it's all about that angle and getting that angle right. And so you saw that it wasn't a steep enough angle, and so I just slammed the building and died. But eventually, and this is why you want to have as many UVs as possible, you will soon see that we get a little bit lucky. And again, this takes time and patience and a lot of players. More UEs, the more chances. And finally, we get to land on top. And then from here, basically he's able to drive around and he can just drive around the entire building as much as he wants. So, anyways, so basically that's all it's done. So we basically go through it a little bit, try and get some more people up, but does not happen. And so basically the UE is able to drive around the building, etc., etc. And so this can be used on multiple areas. I've done it on Paris, I've done it on Berlin, I've done it on Pilsen is the most best one. So if you're ever trying to do this for the first time, do Pilsen in the Pilsen building in the center. It's the best way to get used to trying to do something like this. And once you get used to it, you can start realizing, hey, I can use it to go over any walls or any problem that we run into. And so this is why it's a very useful tool. A little bit less than a glitch. It's more just like a tool that you can use. So, all right. Anyways, hopefully you guys learned how to do this and hopefully this helps in future.